Welcome everyone to Real Talk with Miss Val. My name is Amanda Raymond and I serve as the Associate Director of Alumni Career Engagement. On behalf of UCLA Alumni Affairs, we welcome you to tonight's event. Real Talk with Miss Val is made possible by the support of our sustaining donors. So we want to take this time to thank all of you who have made a donation to help keep our programs going throughout the year. Your UCLA Alumni Association is committed to strengthening the Bruin community with programs like this. The UCLA Alumni Association seeks to bring together our amazing alumni and friends to help us navigate complicated and interesting topics. The Real Talk with Miss Val series has been a wonderful opportunity for all of us to hear from featured guests that have explored topics such as burning questions to how do we handle our social media, navigating our career journeys, and finding balance. For tonight's event, Ms. Val will be interviewing Dr. Foster Mobley. Many of you have submitted questions prior to the event, so we will answer some of your questions throughout the program. And now I'd like to introduce our host. Ms. Val is a former head coach of the UCLA women's gymnastics team, a position she held for 29 years, where she led her team to 7 NCAA championship titles until her retirement in June 2019. In 2018, she published her first book, an inspirational work called Life is Short, Don't Wait to Dance. Today, Ms. Val will be interviewing her friend and leadership coach, Dr. Foster Mobley. I'll turn it over to Val to start our interview.
Hi, Bruins. I love being here. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all the wonderful compliments and messages that you sent along. Before we get started, and hey, Foster, come join me. Come on. You're Bruin. Let's go. There. Hi, Foster.
Hi.
I wish we could see all of you because we need to like give multiple 8 claps. First of all, men's and women's basketball. Woohoo! Okay, keep the good energy going. Let's keep it flowing. Mr. Adam Wright, men's water polo. Oh my gosh. Okay, number 119. Yay, yay, yay. I hope you're all clapping and hooting and hollering. And if you got a little cocktail, you're toasting. And then we also need to give a big shout out and Bruin 8 clap for our host, Amanda Raymond, who is going to be delivering a baby in a week. So that is awesome. There's just all this good energy and good vibes going. So thank you for joining us tonight. I hope that you and your families are all well and safe. And I'm super excited to introduce you to my friend, but also my personal leadership coach who helped me turn things around. I'm actually going to read you what I pulled up on his bio because you know when you know people really well. I literally said to him the other day, Foster, what do you do? But he
and
is
I couldn't answer.
What?
And I couldn't answer.
You couldn't answer. Actually, I knew you before you were a doctor.
You did.
I did. He is an award-winning author. He's a keynote speaker, and he's an executive coach. And the title of his book, he has a fabulous book out. The title of the book caught me a little off guard when I first saw it, Foster. I have to tell you. Okay, look at that. It's not leadership. It's leader. Okay, that. And but then when I read the foreword of the book, it makes perfect sense. And this is an introduction to you that I think is absolutely perfect. And you wrote, great leading is about knowing yourself and being fully in the moment so that when the moments of critical performance come, you can evoke the very best of yourself and others. The rest is just leadership. Okay, I said it.
Thank you, Coach Wooden.
What?
That was from Coach Wooden.
That was from Coach
Not
Wooden.
the leadership part, but the was.
I met you, Foster, in 2009.
Yep.
I had been coaching for lots of time, lots of years. I don't know how many, because we all know I have no affinity for math. We had won 5 national championships, and I just felt like I was in a rut. And thankfully, my entire career at UCLA, my office cubicle when we started has always been next to softball and Coach Sue Enquist. And we literally are like one team, softball and gymnastics. And I remember saying to Coach Enquist that I feel like I need a facelift. I feel with, not like literally, but like with my coaching style. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing myself say the same things over and over. And before I could even finish, she said, Foster Mobley, here's his number. Give him a call. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Foster, so that you can share what your recollection of our first phone call was.
So the phone call went something like this. Hello, Foster, this is Valorie Kondos Field. Oh, hi. Dead silence. I was talking with Coach Enquist and said I should give you a call. Oh, that's great. Dead silence. She goes, you know, I've won 5 national championships. You know, that's terrific. Dead silence. And she goes, I want some help thinking maybe I'm the reason that we haven't won in 5 years. I want you to take a look at me as a leader and see if my leadership is affecting our performance. And I went, okay, anybody that's willing to be that vulnerable and open themselves up like that so willingly, it's on. So that was my first Miss Val moment.
And you know what's funny as you say that, I remember that phone call so clearly because I was just over myself and exasperated with myself. And I did not prepare for a professional first phone call with you at all. And I'm really glad I didn't. And we can get into that a little bit later with just being authentic. And I hadn't thought about this, Foster, but had I put on this professional persona, you wouldn't have heard the emotion in why I was calling you.
And we wouldn't have worked together.
Really?
We would not have worked together.
Why?
No, the highest correlate to growth as human beings is willingness.
Okay, I got to get out my pen and paper because I'm going to take my phone.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like when we get called all the time with, an executive or something, they say, can you coach him or her? And I'll say, just depends. And it depends on one thing. It's not their intelligence, not their experience. It's not their physical affect. It is, are they willing to do the work, willing to be open, willing to be vulnerable, willing to take a look at those parts of ourselves that we don't always let the world see? Because if they are, we can do anything. If they are not, we can do nothing. So we wouldn't have worked together.
I love that. And I love the fact that we're having this conversation that I've never actually had before. So thank you. Okay. So you worked with me the very next year. We won a national championship.
Yep.
That same year, softball won a national championship.
Yep.
You have worked with men's water polo, Adam Wright. You've worked with Stein, beach volleyball.
Yep.
You have worked with, obviously you worked with Sue Enquist,
Mm-hmm.
and you are currently and have worked with Jordan Weber, who is the new head coach, gymnastics coach at Arkansas.
Yep.
So before we get into my first question for you, could you just share with us a story? I love the story that you've told about Adam, especially because it's so new. It's so raw right now for us because he just won.
Well, to your point about not knowing what I do, so I've gotten some very strange calls from UCLA athletic department over time. Partly started with Sue and Kelly I, and then with you. So I was, look, I'm a Bruin. Apparently I earned their trust. So I don't even know when it was, 2012, 2014, something like that. So the story, I didn't know at the time. I get a call from Ashley Armstrong, associate AD, who was supervising Adam Wright, and the water polo team had made the NCAA finals under Adam's coaching I think it was for the first time. And UCLA was ahead in the final match. I think it was against it was against USC. The Bruins had the ball. It was 18 seconds left in the fourth quarter, the final 18 seconds, and a 1-goal lead. Like, how can you not just finish this out and win the natty? and they didn't. A call away from the ball, a foul, SC gets the ball, they come down and tie the game. Then they win it in overtime, to which Adam went ballistic. Adam went nuts. And I don't think he'd mind me saying this because he would acknowledge that he went nuts, to the point that I'll cut through a lot of it. He decided that he was going to follow the officials out in the parking lot after the match while he went to their car, just to let them know that they had made a bad call. And you can imagine it was very even tempered, I'm sure, and whatever. So the NCAA frowned on this and sanctioned Adam such that the next time the Bruin water polo team made the finals, made the finals, Final Four, he could not coach at least the semifinal match. So right after that, I get a call from Ashley Armstrong and said, would you work with Adam? And so I started working with Adam, and really for him, it was about, Coach Wooden taught us all, greatness is about being your best when your best is required. And that's kind of a mantra for me, and it's a tattoo for me, not really, but, like that. Adam was so stressed out, burned out. He was the type A workaholic. He was sleeping under his desk in Morgan more often than he was sleeping at home. And he'd just stay up late watching game film because he wanted to be so ultra prepared. He was exhausted. So by the time an emotional thing happened, he had no stores of energy, stores of emotion to be able to control it. So we worked really on kind of helping him get refocused so that by the time December rolled around in the finals, he had something in the tank and that he didn't have to explode when something bad happened, because it's going to happen. And sports is such a microcosm of life. Bad stuff's going to happen. That's not the issue. The issue is how quickly, with velocity, you can rebound from it and get back to your best. So we worked on that between April and December. And that December, now I don't know if you know this part of the story, Val, that December, we are in maybe there was a year in between where we didn't make the finals anyway. I think there was. So anyway, the next December, after we'd been working together, UCLA makes the Final Four. He has to sit out the semifinal match. The Bruins win that one. We go into the finals against USC, very much like that. And so UCLA's up 7-4 at halftime. SC comes out 7-5. SC scores again, 7-6. SC scores again, 7-7. And I'm watching Adam the whole time. I'm sitting there like locked onto this guy, like, what's he gonna do? As was his team, as was everybody else. He kept his calm. He was completely composed. Bruins came down, scored with about a minute left, held an SC possession. We win the game. Adam jumps in the pool, and that was his first natty as a head coach. But it was all about learning how to not be the demons of your emotions and be your best in those critical moments.
That's a great story. And just love Adam. He's got great hair also.
Oh, that's funny. I thought about that when I saw the pictures of him after 119. Went, God, he still has the best hair.
He still has the best hair. Okay.
I used to have hair before I started working with you, Val.
Okay.
I was a handsome young man. I don't know what happened.
And I just had to
You
have
ever
all the
work
great
with
dyed.
gymnasts?
Okay.
Holy cow. Oh, yeah.
All right. So we kind of know what you do, a little bit of what you do. Explain to us a little bit more what you do, and how is what you do with coaches, athletic coaches, different than the level C executives that is really the bread and butter of your job, because we know athletics doesn't pay anything. How is that different?
Wonderful question.
Thanks.
So my job in a nutshell is to help people be their best. My focus has been on leaders, and my focus has been on top leaders. So top of the house. In the corporate world, they're CEOs, and in the coaching world, they're head coaches. We do lots of other stuff. I do lots of other stuff. So, once in 2009, you and I started working together, and it was just you and me. The next year you said, we have to do this with our team. So with our coaching staff. So in the fall, I started working with you and the coaching staff, and you can remember some of the stuff we do. Some of it is just helping stuff get out of the way so that people's greatness can come through. There's a chapter in my book where I talk about noise, and I also talk about boulders and streams. We have such incredible energy and talents and passions and experience and bumps and bruises that guide us in our life that are wonderful. Most of the time, people play below their full talents. And most of the time, there's simply a process to get people out of their own way. And so I help C-suite executives and I help head coaches and coaching staffs and stuff like that. In fact, Val, one of my favorite Miss Val stories is after certain seasons, you did it 2 summers in a row. You asked me to work with a couple of your athletes that had some self-limiting beliefs or practices. They were holding themselves back or fearful or a variety of things. And one summer you said, okay, I'm going to give so-and-so to this sports psychologist, and I'm going to give the other one to you. And I want to see who does better. You remember that?
No.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yep. And so anyway, part of it really is just getting people out of the way. Now, head coaches versus CEOs. There's a lot in coaching that interferes with your ability technically in the sport, like donor fundraising, like all the public appearances, like organizing your schedule and management things. And so with a lot of coaches like Jordan at Arkansas, who are first year head coaches, there's such a huge difference between assistant coach and head coach that until you make that leap, it's hard to explain to anybody. But there's this, I did this with Kelly Inouye Perez in softball before, we in 2010, 6 weeks after your Natty, she won hers. Part of hers was Kelly has a very active, she's technically really good, and she's got a very active mind. And it's hard for her to slow down her mind. So what I had her do over the course, and while the active mind is not unusual to a head coach versus a CEO, the structure for how to deal with it, many athletic coaches are learning to deal with this the first time, other than them as a performer, as an athlete. So I had her just, whenever a thought came up, she'd write it on a Post-it note and stick it on the wall. She had a wall just full of them. And then we organized them by buckets just to give her mind some peace. So we said, oh, there's a bucket on technical skills that I need to be working on. Oh, there's a bucket on future drills and practices we need to be working on. Anyway, helping her get organized calmed her down. And so by the time we got to Oklahoma City for that championship, she was, I don't know if anybody remembers that all that time ago, but she was calm and herself and powerful and emanating that kind of confidence that the team needs to have in their big challenge. So there's a lot more about management structure, dealing with multiple stakeholders that head coaches need to learn that they've not gotten a lot of training in. That's primarily the difference. The rest is leadership. Leadership's leadership.
Mm-hmm. I hate to say this because I'm going to tell you, I wasn't doing a really good job of listening right now because I kept thinking, who are those athletes? And I do remember this now, the athlete that I said, one of them's going to go meet with our sports psychologist.
Yep.
And the other one's going to go meet with you. And I'm a firm believer in counseling for anyone. I think that any human being that has an opportunity to see a counselor, you don't have to be in crisis mode. It is just like drinking 8 ounces of water. I
think you especially shouldn't be in crisis mode because you can do a lot of great work before you get to that point. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I remember the difference was you got to the issues quicker. I felt because you were speaking their language versus it being the stigma of them having to go see a psychologist. And sadly, I remember that hitting me because that made me so sad that they had that stigma for a sports psychologist, a psychologist of any kind. And that was what started me switching my verbiage on when we used our sports psychologists and how I had our student athletes go see them frequently. From the first week that they reported, they had to make an appointment to go see the sports psychologist. So anyway, thank you for that. You have a really, really, really cool job. And I think that there are a lot of people out there, myself included, and I've asked you this before. His wife does the exact same thing that he does, works with their company. And how does one get started in a career like you have, because it is super exciting. It's super fulfilling. And it's a lot of what we head coaches feel. That's what you're doing. You're coaching these coaches or these CEOs. How does one get started in that field?
Generally through academic training. There's no shortcut to kind of learning the ropes. You could talk to an important executive, or you could talk to a head coach or any coach for 5 seconds, and they would see right through you if you didn't know your stuff, if you weren't really grounded. One thing. Second thing is, so academic training in social sciences, whether it's psychology, sports psychology. My wife is a cum laude graduate in
She's the cum laude.
Yeah, I needed it. Yeah. So, but usually it's through that kind of training. I'm a recovering MBA, so I went to business school out of UCLA, got my MBA, and then realized that I'm more oriented on the people side. So I still have a kind of strategic mind for business, but I really much prefer hanging out with the people and doing stuff on what they call human capital. So do that. So a lot of training that way. You want to get into coaching head coaches, then the sports psychology is probably the best way to go. But I think what helped you and I, Val, and my work with other coaches, head coaches, is that I didn't bring just that narrow sports perspective to our conversations. I could provide some management experience. I could bring in examples from other things like, did you know this leader at this place, this Apple computer, making it up, did this? Oh, I wonder how that would apply here. So I think the breadth of experience that I was able to bring to do that. My work, I am the founder and chairman of a human capital consulting firm, a national firm called FMG Leading. You can Google that. We do lots of work for lots of companies and have since 1984. Which makes me really, really old, or just experienced. I'm not quite sure which. And coaching is part of that. About a third of our work is coaching executives, because we realized that organizations, teams are generally not successful if their leaders at the top are not playing fully. That's another point to answer your question, like, how do you get into this? Then the other answer is do your work. Like, I'm talking about presence. I'm talking about playing fully. If I didn't do that stuff myself, if I didn't have the daily practices and struggle with discipline and staying, self-care and all that kind of stuff, like every other human being on the planet, if I couldn't do that authentically, you wouldn't trust me for 2 seconds. And I think our relationship would have been very short-lived. It's funny, to this day, well, I can't say this to this day. My last communication with Adam Wright was about weight, because we would always tease each other, like, are you following it? Okay, I'm so-and-so today. What about you? Like, you got to walk the talk. You have to do your own work.
Right. I just had something I was going to ask you off the cuff, but I forgot. One of the things that you brought to our team, you brought to me and then our team, and now you're working with Jordan and her team, is the personality assessment, the Enneagram. And I've taken a lot of personality assessments in my coaching career, love them. The one fallacy that I think people are fearful of personality assessments is because they say that they feel that they're put in a box.
Yeah.
And that's not what a personality assessment does. Right. And so the one that you use is the Enneagram, and Ennea in Greek is 9. And so 9 personality types. Could you share with us why you like that? And then, Bruins, if you haven't taken the Enneagram, it's super, super fun. It's really eye-opening. You can take a short Enneagram online for free. Yep. And I'm going to tell you, I've written about it in my book. It's a whole chapter in my book. There are what's 2010 from when I retired? So 19 years, see, I did the math, that I worked with Foster, and we used the Enneagram on our team, there were only 2 times that the assessments just did not align well. And both of those times, the student athlete, English was their second language.
Hmm.
And when we had them take the Enneagram in their native language, they had a totally different effect. Remember that?
Yeah.
Michelle Wong and Paulina Trotz, who's on
Yeah.
the team now, German.
Yeah.
So why of all the personality assessments, do you choose the Enneagram?
Yeah, there are many good ones and many good valid tests. And over the course of our 35-year practice, we've used them all, I think. The reason why, and by the way, if anybody's interested in the reference, it's Enneagram, Gram, and the free test is enneagraminstitute.com, I think it's .com. So Enneagram Institute. The reason we like it is that, are you Googling it, Val?
No, I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay, got it. The reason we like it is that it is dynamic. By that, I mean, I am naturally mostly introverted. So Myers-Briggs would say I'm an introvert, I'm a whatever it is, but I'm not always that. Enneagram basically says, here are the things that drive you, and here are the things that you are trying to cover up, maybe. And some days you're going to have good days, and some days you're going to have average days, and some days you're going to be triggered and you're going to be just reactive. And here's what all of that looks like for your personality type. So dynamic, just reflects the fluidity of our lives and stuff. So rather than a box on Myers-Briggs, I'm an INTJ. And I have a description for that one box. This is, I'm a 3 in the Enneagram, but I've got a 4 wing. And here's what it looks like when I'm healthy, and here's what it looks like on an average day, and like that. So it's really very helpful. The other thing I'd say is, Val, we started using it with your team as a, I'll call it a chemistry tool. Because when we would introduce this early on in fall camp to thank you, Amanda, in fall camp to the Bruins, and they would learn themselves, but in sharing what they were learning about themselves, it built not only a trust with their teammates, but it built an acceptance with their teammates that said, rather than judge me when I don't behave like you think I should, understand me a little bit more, because now you know a little bit more of where I'm coming from. And over the course of the crucible of a competitive season, that is immeasurable, because you start in August, September, championships 3rd week of April. That's a long time to be together, morning, noon, and night. Many of the athletes are living together, making it even more intense. So it helped build understanding rather than judgment. So those 2 reasons, I think, we really like it, and people take it and like it. So
that was the biggest reason why we continued to do it, is exactly what you just said, Foster. We had the whole team and the coaching staff take the Enneagram, and then we evaluated them. And it's really quite hysterical when you read the parts of your results that come back and they share where you go to when you are under stress. And when you're in a group setting like that, and everybody is like pouring out the bad and the ugly of what they get like under stress, you just can't help but crack up. And they've got people that are laughing at you. My coaching staff going, "Oh my gosh, that is so you." I'm like, "I know, it's horrible. It's horrible. I know." But what Foster said is the biggest and probably only reason we really did it every year was because we would put the team and the coaches' results up on the board and kept it there all year. And what it did was, when someone was not showing up as their best, when they were stressed out, when they were lashing out, when they were having a pity party, whatever it was, instead of judging them, all of us learned to kind of go over to the board and look at what is their Enneagram? Where do they go when they're under stress?
And what do they need right now?
And what do they need from us? And it gave us grace with each other.
Yeah.
And it is, it really was part of our secret sauce, because I always used to tell the girls, can you just go out in the world and observe without judging? And it allowed us to do that.
Yeah.
So in the
Val,
chat,
can I tell a quick story?
yeah, sure.
So, and this athlete shall remain nameless just because I haven't asked permission. It's not that it's a bad story. We found out that this athlete was having some like connection issues in the gym and was always seemingly a little bit agitated and yeah, not on her game. And we did the Enneagram and found out that she is a type 1, which is perfectionist. And there is a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something. And there's no gray, absolutely no gray. And when she's tired, she went into that full force. And so she would be, Miss Val would say, okay, let's everybody warm up. Well, she knew the way to warm up. And if somebody was deviating from that, she got a little wiggy and like this. And then that created ripples in the team. And finally we sat down with the Enneagram and she went, God, that's exactly what I'm doing. And so as a way for her to build her self-awareness, but also as a way to help moderate that impact on the team, it's been a really phenomenal tool.
Thank you. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. And she would absolutely let you share that story, but we haven't asked her. So in the chats, it cracks up. Okay. We have one of the most iconic human beings in the world that asks on this chat, Miss Annie Myers Drysdale,
Oh,
hi Annie, how do I sign up to help me be my best? Annie, I appreciate that.
Oh my God.
We would all vote that you're doing a really, really good job at that. And if you've not taken the Enneagram, Annie Myers Drysdale, I would like for you to take it and share with me what your number is. And I'm going to tell a really quick story about Annie Myers Drysdale. So all of you know her as this amazing athlete, basketball player, commentator. She's done amazing things. Annie was probably Coach Wooden's first daughter that he never had. And I'm very blessed to call her my friend. This is a friend. Okay. I got cancer 6 years ago. When I got cancer, once a week, I would receive a card from Annie Myers Drysdale. And they're just a little card that says, hey, thinking about you, crazy little cards. You got this, love you, nothing sentimental and all that, just fun, crazy cards. It has been 6 years. Every single week, I receive a card from Annie Myers Drysdale. And it is a testimony to what a friend is. A friend's not just there in the good times, and a friend's not just there in the bad times. A friend is there with you. And Annie, I love you. And thank you for being on here. I think if you could see everybody, all the Bruins out there, they would all be clapping right now for you. So thank you. Okay, we're going to get to, this is fun, like I can read without my glasses. Lydia Schum, I hope I've said your last name correctly, asks, why do bosses try to enforce their own brand onto team members rather than celebrate diversity and individuality? And I love this question because I've gotten this question. Foster, I'd love to know what you've got to say about this.
My tongue-in-cheek answer is good bosses don't. The more nuanced answer is, we all have an idea about how we like to be perceived, our own brand. And sometimes that gets all tangled up with ego, and that gets all tangled up with well, I'll leave it at ego. It gets tangled up with who we want the world to see us as rather than who we really are. And when ego drives the bus, there's sure a lot less room for openness, diversity of thought, diversity of background, working with people who don't think like us. That's really that's an advanced stage of emotional intelligence. And the work that I do and my firm does is all EQ, emotional intelligence based. And it is, helping to understand ourselves. That's exactly the kind of leader we work with all the time. And we help them with grow their self-awareness and then grow awareness of impact on their others. And we do it through a variety of tools. So leadership feedback and Enneagrams and Hogan assessments and stuff.
That question really hit me because, the word brand is just such a catchword nowadays. Why do bosses try to enforce their own brand? I have a part in my book that I share openly, and there have been over the years a few athletes who have shown up. The example I give in my book is Jeanette Antolin. She showed up with cornrows one day, and it was about 2 days before the meet. And I personally did not think that it was a good look for her personally, for the shape of her head, for whatever. Not that cornrows, not that it was misappropriation or anything like that. It simply was, I don't think it's your best look. And I prefer you not wear them. And I got flack. I got some flack, some not good feedback on that, that I was forcing her out of her individual brand and who she wanted to be. And that was really great feedback that I got, because that was not my intention. My intention was not supposed to say I wanted all these Bruins to be cookie cutters. And anybody that knows our team knows that we're one of the most diverse teams that's ever competed out there. It was simply, I didn't think it was a good look for her. And I felt that was my job as the head coach to relay that we want. It's the same reason why I don't let our athletes put the UCLA tattoo on their face. A lot of gymnasts will wear the school tattoo on their face. It's like, that doesn't enhance their beauty and their look. Why would they do that? So that was another interesting answer to this that I'm going to share is when Caitlin Ohashi went viral, she had curly hair, she had little dimples. Everybody that saw her routine said she exuded joy. Well, immediately everybody started talking about her being on Dancing with the Stars. And Sasha on Dancing with the Stars, the star, wanted her as his partner. And he was tweeting this and posting it and the whole bit. And when she in her interview with the casting director, she had put in box braids all of her head that were super, super long. And she didn't get offered. And she asked me, they built me up. They made me believe that I was going to be offered to be on Dancing with the Stars. Why do you think? I said, Kate, it's not right or wrong that you put the box braids in, but they fell in love with the brand of the curly haired, cute little Caitlin Ohashi. Yeah. And this other side of Caitlin Ohashi showed up, and they probably couldn't legally tell you, if you take the box braids out, we'll sign you. And to this day, we don't know if that's the reason or not, but that was another thing that popped in my head when I read that question. So thank you for sharing that question with us.
Yeah, wonderful question.
Yeah. Jacob Johnston. Any advice, Foster Mobley, for daily, morning, evening, or weekly routines to help build clarity and impact?
Again, great question. The short answer is find whatever works for you. I'll tell you what has worked for me really well. And I'm a very infrequent practicer of meditation, but when I do, it helps me. I also have a tool that is, it is from the book, The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz, called a daily accountability log, in which you identify, and this works for people, some people really, really well. You identify your life mission, what you're all about, why you're on the planet. And then you identify the daily habits that help keep you fully powered. So for example, for me, I go to a whole different place in my level of calm when I can write, when I'm involved in music somehow. This is one thing you may not know about Miss Val, but she is an incredible pianist, a wonderful pianist. And so music for me is amazing, and that helps me. Swimming, distance swimming helps me a lot. It's one of the most meditative things I've done. Physical fitness helps me, but I would put those on the daily accountability log. Like one of them is, for me, staying off my phone / email / crises of the day / news until I have acknowledged my life partner, my lovely wife. And for me, I'm in a way better place when I do that. Well, getting intentional about it, that was an activity that I had to figure out. I would get out of bed and I'd be agitated already and like, why? Well, put the freaking phone down. Like, that's spinning you up. No, instead, express some gratitude to my life partner. Boy, does that put you in a different place. So anyway, kind of learning those things. The daily accountability log's cool. You could probably look that up as well. But because then each day you evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. How did I do today on that? And if you forget, you're accountable. That's why it's called daily accountability log. And you come back the next day and went, yeah, when I wake up in the morning, I want to express gratitude as opposed to CNN.
What is the name of the book again? And Amanda, can we put that in the chat?
The book is The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr, Loehr. He's a sports psych guy who's worked with the top tennis players and top golfers in the world. And it's called the Daily Accountability Log. I think that's part of it. I went to a class called The Corporate Athlete that Jim Loehr put on, and that was part of it.
Great, thank you. I do have to say, when you were talking about the phone, when COVID hit, and then we went through Black Lives Matter, and we were going through the election and all of that, I was strung out, and I wasn't even traveling, and I told myself, what stresses you out? And part of it was this feeling that I had to post every day because I had to make sure my followers stayed up, and I had to reach 100,000 followers before a certain time. And I've got to do this. And I have social media people that help me with this. And they're like, okay, we're going to post 2 times a day. What do you want to post? I was like, that's what's stressing me out. So for the last 10 months, I have not been on social media. I have been on LinkedIn. I don't know if that counts or not.
It does.
And I will scroll a little bit through Facebook because I know that's where my family's on. And then I'll do a little bit just of scrolling so that I can heart, UCLA gymnastics and the girls and stay in touch with them. But that's it. I can't tell you how freeing it is. And it's so interesting. There's a whole world out there that's not on social media.
Yeah.
And the time that it frees up in my day, it literally, the time, you all know this, that most people spend between 6 and 8 hours a day scrolling, just mindlessly scrolling to numb out. So instead of scrolling to numb out, I literally will take a breath and step outside and go for a walk. And sometimes that walk will be 5 minutes, and sometimes that walk will be 2 hours. Yep. And that is it. Instantly, the moment I step outside, it's like this, I just shed all the noise. As Foster would say, clear your stream of all the noise, the boulders and the rocks and the tree limbs and all that. My stream gets clear just simply by putting down my phone and going outside. I highly recommend it, Bruins.
Yeah. Val, would it be helpful if I told the quick parable of the stream and boulders and stuff like that?
Very much.
So one of the first chapters in my book, it's about the fact that very few of us play at our full potential. And I analogize life to that of a clear flowing, beautiful mountain stream. We've all been there. We can, you can see one, and, it flows freely, and the water's clear and crisp and almost sweet to taste. And it flows where it's supposed to flow. And now picture that same thing with a rock in it or a boulder in it. The water actually speeds up, becoming more turbulent over boulders. And our job is not to create new streams. Our job is first to remove the boulders, the sticks, the pebbles, the branches that have fallen in, because once that does, it slows down the natural flow. So part of this is finding out when you're at your best and then learning to remove the obstacles to that. One of them is noise. Noise is expectations. You know, I always tell the story about going with Miss Val and the team to University of Utah, Huntsman Center on a blackout Friday night when everybody in Salt Lake City where it puts on their best black gear and shows up in that place. And if you've not ever been to the Huntsman Center, you owe it to yourself one time, because the stands go right down to the floor and there's no room between somebody working on a balance beam and a spectator, like maybe 3 feet. And I'm just saying, in those charged environments with a rival, the crowd noise and the types of things that they say to gymnasts it curled my hair. Like, wow, these are daughters of, you know, people just like you. What are you saying? Like, so you can imagine being on a balance beam 3 inches wide, having to execute flawlessly when somebody 3 feet away is saying things about your lineage or about your friend or about what you're wearing, or amazing. That's noise. Anything that prevents us from operating and keeping at our best is noise. And part of a world-class athlete like Miss Val coached for years, part of their job is to learn how to deal with that noise and still be at their best. And that applies to all of us every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Last year for softball, I was very much honored to speak with the team before the last game. And I'm like, what do I have to say to softball? I mean, these guys like UCLA softball are just in a planet all on their own. And I talked about that. And I just told them, you know, there's a lot of noise about UCLA softball, and you guys are going to supposedly win it all. And that's all noise. And in the eye of the hurricane, all is quiet. And Kelly I told me after that game, I think it was the catcher that was getting a little nervous, and Rachel Garcia went up to her and said, "Get in the eye of the hurricane."
Nice.
Silence the noise. Yeah. And they won. So Foster and I take credit for all the national
For
champions.
all of it. For all of it. At least from 2009 on.
I'm going to start taking credit for Andy Myers-Drysdale too. So.
Oh my God.
Okay. Fun fact, and you Bruins should know this. She's the first and only female to be drafted by the NBA. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Rachel Cotter asks Dr. Foster Mobley, how can one imagine change in someone else when how can one inspire change in someone else when there is huge resistance, feeling of despair, and lack of any motivation?
Yeah. Rachel, is it?
Yes.
Rachel, you can't. You can't. The power, and I'll tell you a quick story about my son. The power you have is living your example and not expecting change in another human being. There's a story I tell in the book. I'll keep it very short, but you know, I've been teaching leaders all over the world since 1980, and you know, had a brand of, you know, this leadership guy. And I had a son who was addicted in his adolescence to meth and I think whatever other substances he could put his hands on. And it was out of control, and I had to have him leave the house a number of times and like kick him out on the street, knowing that he had no place to go. And you know, part of my wanting him to be different was what drove him in some way, some small way, to seek comfort from the expectations. That was his way to kind of cope with things. And it was only when, and I did, you know, I'm going to stop drinking to support him, even though alcohol was not his drug of choice. I did for a year, and he will now recount that and say, you know, that was really great, Dad, but you know, like I had to do this myself. And for me, there's something about the Father's blessing in the traditions that I study. I called him up one day. I hadn't seen him in 3 months. I didn't know if he was still going to have his cell phone because he probably stole it for drugs. Come to find later, he was kind of running from Mexican mafia and all kinds of crazy stuff. I called him up one day when I got really clear myself, and I said, I love you. I'm going to love you at the end of this. I want you to have a great life, whatever that is for you, not what it looks like for me. And I love you. And I hung up. And I hadn't talked to him in 3 months. And the next day I got a call and said 3 words, I need help. And that was the first thing that enabled him. I tried to get out of my own ego and my own way. I couldn't want the change for him more, but I could just do what I could to model it and live it. So that's my cut. It's not a very happy one, Rachel, I'm sorry. But I deal all the time with people who don't want to change, and they won't. That no is much, much stronger than a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for sharing that. And your son is good now. Yeah.
He's incredible. And he's taught me more than any human being on this planet. And I have 3 loving, lovely children, 38, 34, and 28. And he's the one that calls me every day.
That's great. That's wonderful. I'll tell your youngest daughter to get on that.
I know. Yeah. Work on that.
Okay.
Would you know?
Last question. Sorry, we weren't able to get to all of them. And thank you so much for sending them in. Really, really appreciate it. From Megan Jelinek. Do you have any advice on how to make an impact as a leader or as an employee if you have a strong EQ, great ideas to share, but are less extroverted and more soft-spoken? I have things to say, but often get bulldozed by high driver personalities.
Oh man, is that good?
That's a great question.
Megan, oh man. Well, you do it through chat features like this. Here's the deal. There is also no correlation between extroversion and leadership. There is a high correlation between having a big mouth and extroversion. You know, a lot of people who are just kind of out there and energy out all the time. What I would do, there is a piece though too, Megan, about quietly persisting. When you've got an idea, you know, it's I have an idea, and the big mouths are going to do their thing. I have an idea, and the big mouths are going to do that. I have an idea. You don't have to be the loudest voice, but for a while you may have to persist a little bit more than is comfortable. That's the other thing I would challenge you to, Megan, is, you know, not knowing anything more about you is that, you know, I advise people all the time that living in their comfort zone will never help create the kind of progress you want. So find that little piece of we call it stretch. We do this with the student athletes. We don't want you to go into total discomfort and panic, but stretch a little bit. Discomfort in kind of getting your voice heard finally will be a good thing, but just continue to persist even if it doesn't always feel comfortable. So get your voice out there. We need your voice.
I remember that part in Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, where I remember this so clearly when she wrote about being in a conference, and they said, and all these hands went up for questions. They were taking questions. And then the moderator said, so sorry, we've run out of time. And all of the women put their hands down and the men kept their hands up. And Foster, what you just said jogged that memory of mine. As he said, just stretch yourself out of your comfort zone just a little bit more. You won't be annoying. Someone who's soft-spoken like that will not be annoying. You won't be disrespectful.
Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, Bruins, our time has come to an end. I want to say thank you so very much for all of you being here. I'm thrilled that we're all here together. Someone wrote a question, and I don't want to take it because I just said that we're coming to an end, but talking about the quarantine and coming out of this and people starting to get the vaccine and all, will leaders simply revert back to the way things were before? And what I would say to that is, At the start of quarantine, I made a choice, a conscious choice that I was going to grow through this time versus just go through this time.
Mm.
And as Foster has said, you can't change people who don't want to change. And so if you're wondering, going back to work, is your boss or an employee, an obnoxious employee, going to be the same? Who knows? It's out of your control. Control the controllables, right? But hopefully, even if you haven't really made that conscious choice to grow through this time, you can start today. You can start tonight. And using some of these things that Foster shared with us. Put your phone down. Go turn your phone off. Go meditate. I'm not good at meditating at all. I don't even know what good meditation is supposed to look and feel like, but it sure feels good when I practice it. There's no harm that comes from that. Only good comes from that. So anything that you would like to say about that, Foster?
No, I couldn't agree more.
Great. Okay, Bruins, I have so thoroughly enjoyed doing these webinars. We were actually not even going to do this last set, and I just loved being with all of you so much that I said, let's just do it anyway. So hopefully, if you would like to learn more and glean more from people that we're able to bring in, let Amanda know, let the UCLA Alumni Center know, and I'm happy to come back and just chat and be a part and keep bringing awesome people in like Dr. Foster Mobley. And to that, I wish all of you a wonderful evening. And to all of you Bruins, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure all of you out there are just so excited to be able to get back on campus at some point and go into your favorite spots, even Ackerman Union. If you've not, please go out and get this. And someone asked earlier, Foster, if this is on Audible. Is it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I tried to answer that and I screwed up. It is not on Audible. Just
Okay.
Amazon.com.
Okay. I read my own book, Foster, on Audible, so I'm happy to read yours. That would be
Did
really
you?
fun if I could add some things in there too.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, you already wrote the preface to it, so that would be great. Oh, we could tell some stories. That
We
would be
could tell
a
stories.
blast. Oh,
All right, Bruins, be safe, be well. Remember, go about your day observing without judging. Let's be the light for the world, okay? I love you all so very much. Bye-bye.